Hello, robust Scrum product owners. Welcome to this new module where we're going to talk about what product owners are responsible for and what they're not responsible for. I'm going to share with you 3 ways to think about product ownership and then 2 tactics. And then finally, we'll go step by step through what the Scrum Guide says product owners do. Let's start off with mindset. Number 1. The product owner is a person who has the ability to execute on a product vision. The execute part here is absolutely critical. I hear from product owners who say, the stakeholders aren't letting me do what I want. I don't really have access to our customers. I don't know how to work with the development team. They don't listen to me. The ability to execute on your product vision is a critical part of being a successful product owner. So understand that that's part of your responsibility. Number 2, the product owner is the CEO of the product. That means that you're responsible for everything, including the ROI or the business value of the product. In fact, if you focus on that relentlessly, you'll go a far way to being substantially better than the typical product owner. So being a product owner is not about taking notes. It's not about going around and talking to stakeholders and customers, writing down what they want, and then feeding that into the development team. It's a much higher level strategic position in which you're responsible for everything that the product does and is. The what and the why is what your responsibility is. And that's my point number 3. You don't focus on things like how. You don't focus on when. You focus on why we're building the product, why the customer wants that product, why the customer is going to love the product, and you focus on the what. The why and the what is your responsibility. So those are 3 key mindset issues. Let's talk about 2 tactics that you may not have heard about. The first is to be deeply embedded with your customer community. The CEO and founder of Airbnb actually slept at Airbnbs for over a year to find out what they wanted. And he got some of his key ideas from that experience. So you need to live with your customers. You need to deeply understand your product community. Here's an example. You've probably been looking over my shoulder and you've been looking at this toothbrush. That's the Sonicare toothbrush. It removes plaque. Better than any other toothbrush. So someone really understood me. Someone understood that I absolutely hate to be in the dentist chair getting drilled on. It's not about plaque, it's not about cavities, it's about the dentist drilling into my teeth and irritating me. And that product removes a lot of that pain. So instead of sitting in the dentist chair for 60 minutes, I'm only there for 30 minutes. That's an insight that you get from being with your product community. The second tactic I want to share with you is the importance of having some understanding of the technology. There are some people who say that product owners don't need to know anything about technology. What that does is that it reduces the communication bandwidth between the product owner and the dev team. So understanding something about technology is very valuable. In fact, at Google, they have highly technical product owners. In fact, many of them even have computer science degrees. So understanding something about the technology will help you communicate. That doesn't mean that you define the technology. That's not your responsibility. But it does help you to understand what the development team is saying. That's fantastic. 3 key mindsets and 2 new approaches to product ownership. Let's now go through the Scrum Guide and discuss in detail what it says a product owner does. Here we are looking at the definition of the product owner from the Scrum Guide. We're going to go through this sentence by sentence. The product owner is responsible for maximizing the value of the product and the work of the development team. So you own the ROI, you own the value of the product, and you do that by working with the development team. Now, that's what your goal is, but as the second sentence indicates, exactly what you're doing will depend on the context. If you change organizations, what you're doing may be very different. Sometimes I get asked a question like, how do I do release planning? Or how do I write a user story? There's no general answer to any of those questions. There's no such thing as a universally good user story. The user story is a way of communicating, and it will depend on who you're communicating with. So a great user story in one environment may not be a great user story in another environment. So you need to adapt your practices to the context. The third sentence is, you're responsible for managing the product backlog, and you're the sole person who's responsible for that. You can ask other people for help, but you're accountable. So the product backlog work includes expressing backlog items in a way that the audience can clearly understand, ordering the items to achieve maximizing the value of the product, to achieve hitting deadlines if you have deadlines in your environment, working with the team on what's technically possible and not technically possible. Thirdly, you need to optimize ROI. The cost of a team is more or less fixed. It's the salary of the team. So that means having a relentless focus on value, which means deeply understanding your customer base. Fourth, everyone needs to know what's in the product backlog. You're responsible for communicating it and making it clear to everyone. Very often I'll see that certain executives don't want to go into your product backlog. And so you'll need to find ways of communicating with them so that it's clear to everyone what your backlog looks like. And finally, the development team needs to understand the product backlog items. That often involves daily conversation. So who's responsible and accountable for this? You can do the work. You can have the development team do the work. However, you remain accountable for the work being done. Here's a simple example. Let's say that you want to get analytics on a feature. You want to know whether customers are using the feature or not. You could do that work by writing SQL queries and using the analytics tool, or you could have the development team do it. Either way, you're responsible for it. Who does the work? The person who is best able to do the work. The second to last paragraph starts off with this great sentence, the product owner is one person, not a committee. What that means is that you can talk to anyone you want, but ultimately you make the decision. In the same way that the development team ultimately makes the decision about what the technical architecture is going to be. Okay? If anyone wants to change anything in the backlog, you have the ability to process that request. You decide, right? No one is allowed to insert things into the backlog or change the order of the backlog without understanding what you want. The final paragraph is about authority. It's critical that the product owner is a person who is respected by the entire organization. The product owner is not a person who can be second-guessed or overruled. If that's happening, that's a learning edge for the entire organization. Does the entire organization understand that the product owner is the person who is responsible for backlog management and interacting with the team? The development team can't work off another set of requirements. If a VP comes in and says, do this, they're violating this contract, this agreement. And the development team needs to have the strength and the understanding to ask the product owner to prioritize their work, to order their work. Again, you may start off in a different place, but this is the goal. So that's a summary of what the product owner does.